Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Our Life Beginnings and Noise. And where we were. Okay, our last moment was dinner. We told Cove about his dad giving us 25 or giving us he gave us $20. Gave us $20 to try and be his friend, to be Cove's friend. And we were 8 at the time, so we didn't think much of it. We were like, kid, and it's like, what? Oh, there's a lot of things we could do with this money, blah blah blah, and that, this and that. And but at the same time, it's like, even regardless with money, no money, or whatever. We decided to be Code's friend regardless of either way. I mean, even if we didn't take the money, eventually we were going to have to confess to Cove that his dad, offered us money to be his friend, because that was just wrong, That was just wrong on his part, basically. So, we're going to get started with road trip. And let's get comfortable here. Grab my keyboard. Usually you wouldn't be up so early, especially during summer vacation, but today was different. Today, instead of the lazy days you were used to, everything around you was a flurry of activity, as both your family and Coves prepared for what lay ahead. Because parked in the street just outside your house was a massive RV camper, so big you couldn't even see Cove's house behind it. His parents had rented the RV for a few days to take him on a short road trip to see the Redwood Natural Park. Redwood National Park. Okay. You glanced at Cove, who was standing nearby, taking in the scene in front of him. The prospect of the trip had to be a mixed bag for him. But it was only 3 days, so it seemed he was dealing with it as best he could. Especially now that you and your family were joining them. You weren't sure how exactly it had happened. You knew your parents and Coves spoke to each other often, and somewhere along the way, plans were made after Cliff offered to share the space. The parents all thought it was a fantastic idea. You had already gotten a good look inside while helping to load everything in. And you had to admit that while it was a really big car, it's not even a car, it's an RV. It's like a van, big long van, whatever you want to call it. It's not even a car. Fitting that many people inside was going to be snug. Yeah.
Let's go.
Move it or lose it, kiddo, says Mom. Mom busted past with a cooler in one hand and a large bottle of water underneath the other. She was upbeat for this early in the morning. Ma, however, seemed to be on the other side of the wavelength. She followed behind her wife, dragging her feet on every step. Yeah, she didn't look very awake. She looks pretty elegant. I'm gonna need a whole jug of coffee once we hit the road, says Mom. I'm gonna pick the second one. Personally, you were as raring to go as your mom. You stretched your arms out and took in some deep breaths. The air was still a little damp from dew, but you didn't mind it. And then at the end of the chain came your sister. She had a bone to pick before the trip officially started. Her rattling off critiques added some level of normalcy to everything new going on.
Ugh.
I don't get why I can't sleep in the bed tonight. Chippy is the youngest, and I'll never fall asleep in that loft, says Elizabeth. We're trying to make things fair on everyone. If you want to play the older card, you should be offering to take the loft both nights. It's important for big siblings to make sacrifices for their younger ones as well. Elizabeth huffed, not happy with that answer in the slightest, and folded her arms, leaning back against the side of the RV. The trip plans had been nailed down prior. The sleeping arrangements included. Elizabeth still held on to her objections with them. There was a main area of the RV with a couch, loft, and some floor space. At the end of the car, again, it's not even a car. At the end of the car was a room with a large bed. It's not a car. I don't know why they're calling it a car. Seriously, it's not a car. Your moms were sharing the bed. Car was on the couch, and father and son intended to sleep on the floor. The adults determined you and Elizabeth would switch between the small loft above the driver's seat and sharing the bed with moms. I'm gonna pick the second one. You are excited to sleep in a loft. It would be a new experience for you. And this is dragging my mic. Damn cord. There we go. Okay. It would be a new experience for you and sounded kind of cool. Alright, you lot. Does everyone have everything they need? Asked Mom. We're heading out in 5 minutes. Now's the time to double check. You don't want to forget something important, says Mom. At the word, Elizabeth yelped and dashed back into the house, her bedhead hair bouncing behind her as she went. Ma came over and gave you a smile, sitting her hands on her hips. How about you, Chippy? Asked Mom. Do you have all your clothes packed? Toiletries, deodorant, floss, anything else you can think of? You were confident you had it all. Wanting to make sure everything was organized and ready to go, you had packed the night before and set your alarm too. Yep, I'm good. That's great. We'll have to wait for the ones who weren't as organized, but we'll be heading off shortly. With a few minutes left to spare before leaving, you mentally went over what you had packed for the trip. Clothes, a pillow, a blanket. And a blanket. Usual day-to-day gear for most people. You also had more personal things such as portable gaming console. The drive to the Redwood National Park would take an entire day one way, so you wanted to make sure you had a way to entertain yourself while traveling there and back. Pencils and paper. You had to be prepared in case you saw something to sketch at the park, or if you had to write anything down, or if you needed to pass time just doodling. Let's see what else. The camera. It was just a little pocket camera you had gotten from your mom's, but you couldn't miss the opportunity to take some new snaps. What else? An MP3 player with headphones. With so much time going to be spent driving in a car. Again with the car. It's not a car. It's a big van, like RV kind of thing. not a car. Big difference, okay? You wanted to make sure you'd be able to have some music to put on. And that was everything. As far as extras go, anyway. Hey, let me take that for you, Chippy. I'll stow it in the RV. There's a few spots left. It'll fit, says Kara. You let Kara take your bag and gave her a grateful smile. With nothing left to do, you watched the others getting ready for the trip. Kara and Cliff seemed to have the most energy of anyone. They were finishing packing the suitcase away while your moms had gone to lock up the house. They high-fived whenever another one got crammed in the storage compartments of the vehicle. Even though your own parents were more low-key than Cove's, you could tell they were both excited for the trip. It had been a while since your family had been away anywhere together. Elizabeth skipped towards the RV. Good thing they're calling it an RV instead of a car. Come on, really? It's an RV, it's not a car. It's a big difference. A bag slung over her shoulder, and you were surprised to see she seemed more optimistic about the whole ordeal now. Usually she wasn't one to exit the confines of her room unless it was for TV or food or to leave her family behind to be with friends. You would have thought 3 days packed in the RV with 6 others would be too much for her, but it was a nice surprise. You supposed any vacation was better than no vacation in her mind. Cove had been pretty quiet so far, and more than anything seemed to be overwhelmed by the situation. I'm gonna go with the first one. You were excited for the trip too. It was great to get away and explore new places. Soon the miscellaneous remaining tasks had been wrapped up. Everyone piled into the RV. It was officially time for the trip to start. And it did. Cliff took the first shift driving. He cautiously navigated the massive, again with the car, really. RV, not car. It's not a car. Out of the narrow neighborhood streets. It was touch and go for the first part of the journey. Your moms and Kara were all hurtled at the front, trying to get a view of how much space they had on each side. There was a sense of relief when the first long leg of the trip was hit, and the RV would only need to go down one stretch of highway for miles. The mom group cleared out the driver's area, leaving Co's dad to it, taking more comfortable seats around the main cabin. You felt like you could finally relax now too. Time slipped by as morning faded away. Before you realized it, the engine of the RV came to a stop, but only halted for a few moments as Cliff climbed out from the driver's seat and Mom took over. Mom was sitting shotgun, giving Mom a quick tutorial on the controls as it was her first time driving anything this large. Cliff groaned as he headed towards the rest of you, stretching his arms above his head and loosening up his muscles. We're making good progress, says Co's dad. Yeah, maybe you should take a nap in the back for a while. That was a long haul you just did, and I know you're on less sleep than usual, says Kara. Cliff waved a hand, that trademark grin of his slipping in place.
Nah.
I don't need sleep. I've still got a few miles in the old trunk, says Co's dad. He flexed an arm, showing off his muscles, to drive the point about how resilient he was home. And Kara rolled her eyes in amusement. Dad, everybody has to sleep, says Co. Co shook his head at the tough guy act, though Cliff simply chuckled and ruffled his son's hair.
So?
Are you going to be driving again anytime soon, Mr. Holden? I want to know so I can prepare, says Elizabeth. Anyone pack some rope? I might need it. There's no seatbelts up here. Elizabeth called down from where she was, now launching in the loft above the driving compartment. She was laying on her back, her hair falling over the side and swinging around as the RV started up again and took off down the road. A bag of potato chips was balanced on Elizabeth's stomach, and she tossed a couple in her mouth right as Cliff held a hand to his chest, pretending to be offended by the remark. Kara laughed light-heartedly.
Don't worry about that.
Lucky for all of us, we have enough adults to cover the shifts today. He won't be driving again until tomorrow, says Kara. I hear you shouldn't gang up on the poor guy. Thank you. At least someone's here is on my side, Cisco's dad. Mom shouted back in her seat to join in the conversation, a playful smile tilting on her lips. What I'm more worried about is this old monster getting us there and back again before falling apart, says Mom. It looks as though it was built in the early 90s. It must be older than some of the occupants. That's just the aesthetic of its decor. It's not that old, says Kara. I think. Did you ask what year the model was before you rented it? Asked Cove. Kara wrinkled her nose in thought.
Hey!
Yes, I did. I just can't remember what the answer was, says Kara. Cliff chuckled at her while the rest of you let out a collective sigh. The RV lurched a little as it picked up speed, and you held onto the ladder to the loft to keep your balance. You felt something graze the top of your head before a weight settled on your brown hair. Then you tilted your chin up carefully to look. You heard the rustling of the bag of chips and realized Elizabeth rested the end of it on your head. She gestured to the opening, slightly offering to share her snack. You took a handful. Reaching up, you scooped up some chips. After that, the weight of the packet left your skill. You happily munched away as the conversation continued on. You got closer and closer to your destination. The day flew by with a group of you chatting, playing games, and passing the time together before finally arriving at the park and settling up for the night. Mom was closing the windows while everyone got ready for bed, saying goodnight to the others as she made her way back to the back room. Okay. You had all dinner together while still driving, and some hours after had arrived at your destination and found a spot to park in for the rest of your stay. Giving a look across the front of the RV, you noticed almost everyone there was already dozing off where they were, with Cove having completely fallen asleep, curled up in the passenger seat. He must have done so while Kara was driving the last leg, and they had decided not to disturb him. Kara herself was the only one up there who was still awake, flipping through a magazine next to a portable light from her spot on the couch. It seemed Mr. Holden needed to sleep despite his claims. You followed your mom's into the back room and closed the door behind you before crawling onto the bed between them. It was a queen-size bed, so there was enough space for the three of you together without too much squashing.
Good night.
Get a good rest, Chippy. We've got a big day ahead of us tomorrow, says Mom.
That's fantastic.
Oh. I'm looking forward to the bush walk. The bush walk in the morning. It's been a long time since I was out in nature like this, says Mom. There will be plenty for us to see, says Mom. You stayed awake for a little longer while your moms whispered about the park and forest in general. With the sound of their voices in the background, eventually you nodded off to sleep. The next morning you were up bright and early, preparing for the day ahead. You slept well. I wish I did. For real. You fell asleep before you knew it and had woken up rested. Damn. Ma, a bit about the firmness of the mattress, but Mom had only encouraged her to enjoy the trip while she could. Excuse me. While looking for a spot to get ready, you had some trouble finding a space of your own as the others were doing the same thing. Cove was perched on the top of the counter, brushing his hair and tucking up his legs every time someone wanted to move past. The parents were double checking and triple checking that you had everything to the point where you had stopped listening to them altogether. You knew you wouldn't be returning to the RV at all that day, but by the look of the backpacks that were packed up and ready to go, you doubted anything was missing from them. Just realized I forgot to put up the sign on the door. Give me a moment, guys. And it's not like nobody pays attention to it anyway, but still. Okay, let's see. There we go. Put that in there. Alright, sorry about that, guys. I'm back. It didn't take much longer until you all exited the RV in a bustle and headed into the Redwood National Park,
Wow.
says Cove. Cove had his head tilted up towards the canopy of trees, his eyes wide as he took in the massive trunks on either side of you. You knew that the redwood trees were considered the tallest trees on Earth, but you weren't prepared for exactly how huge they would be in person.
Come on.
Small, you two, says Kara. You spun just in time for Kara to snap a picture of you and Cove together before she pointed her camera at Cliff, trying to get a shot despite his weak protest that she should just enjoy the moment. Your parents were walking behind the group a little with Mom and Ma. Mom telling Ma some information she had read about the park in a brochure. Ma listened happily while looking around and taking in the sights, every now and then asking a question or making a joke about something Mom had said. You smiled at them, thinking your mom must have read a lot of pamphlets to know so much about the park. Maybe you should come and work here as a tour guide if you know so much about the place, says Elizabeth. Elizabeth teased, earning a squeeze on the nose from your mom. She seemed to be enjoying herself, but he thought that might just be because she was amused by everyone else's reactions. I'm gonna go with the first one. You were in awe of the redwood trees. Surrounding you on either side, the enormous trees shot up into the sky. The sunlight peeking through their canopy and speckling the path in front of you. The sheer size of the redwoods made you feel like a tiny ant bustling along through the forest. The adults had decided on some casual nature walks rather than any serious hiking, and you strolled along at your own pace, taking in the scenery. Elizabeth sped up a little, smirking at Cove as she fell into place between the two of you. And immediately you could tell by her expression she was going to say something taunting.
Aww.
I can't believe our families are actually on vacation together, said Elizabeth. She threw her arms out, speaking with a genuine sense of bewilderment. I would have joked about something like this happening, but now I'm not sure I want to give them any more ideas, says Elizabeth. Cole smiled at her, even if it was a little awkwardly, and continued walking along. Just watch, next year they'll be talking about their next new amazing ideas, says Elizabeth. She put on a fake voice deeper than her own. We should just sell both our houses and move in together. Think of how much we'd save on the mortgage, says Elizabeth. It was clear that Elizabeth was being sarcastic. Cove simply shook his head, not really bothered by her. You suppose he was used to it by this point. But seriously, they really do act like we're a single family just because we live across the street from each other, says Elizabeth. Elizabeth gave you and Cove a look, her eyes glittering with mischief as she leered at you.
Yeah.
Maybe one day we will be related, legally anyway, says Elizabeth. She said it though she was a gossipy old lady. But she almost immediately dropped the tone and nonchalantly said her real thoughts. At least that's what Ma thinks, says Elizabeth. Cole still blushed, which made Elizabeth smile triumphantly, as though that was her whole purpose for teasing him. Why you gotta be so mean? Girl, why you gotta be so mean? Then he mumbled quietly, refusing to make eye contact with either of you. I don't know why you think you're so funny when no one else does, says Cove. For reals. I'm gonna go with the third one. Since I already told my moms that I wanted to marry him, I'm just gonna say it because it's still a thought in my head. I'll marry you, Cove. That would be fitting after all, considering what you thought about when you first met him. Yeah. He looked at you in disbelief. He generally could not believe This is where the conversation had gone. Don't worry over it. You can take as long as you need to think on that. Cole frowned and reddened harder, but pretended to ignore what you were saying. Your sister noticed what was happening. Oh, he isn't going to engage with this topic, says Elizabeth. He groaned at the continued teasing and increased the speed of his walk. The day continued on with plenty to see and experience. You passed a few different activities that you would have liked to try out if you had time, such as kayaking, rock climbing, but Ma said that would have to wait for another trip. There was a little stream during the walk that you sat beside, and it set out a picnic for lunch, nibbling on a selection of fruit, sandwiches, and chips. Various birds flew by overhead. You had made a game out of guessing the species that were hanging out in the trees nearby. You even managed to get a couple of them right, including the kingfisher that grabbed half a Cliff sandwich. Oh my god. A bird thief. I'm gonna go with the second one. You were disappointed to only have one day in the park. There was so much here, you felt like you'd need a whole week, maybe even more, to experience it all. You sighed quietly to yourself, wondering if you get to chance to come back. Your group made it back to camp just as the sun was setting in the sky and the stars were appearing one by one. Everyone had enjoyed different parts of it most. You traded stories of what you thought while you were eating dinner. Then afterwards you pitched in to help clean up. You, along with Elizabeth and Cove, got to head back to the RV early and spend some time together, while the parents stayed outside longer. It was nice to have the space to yourselves after the cramped journey there. And while Elizabeth locked herself in the back room with her headphones, you and Cove left the main lounge area. You hung out with Cove. We might as well get comfortable. Who knows how long they'll be out for. You took a seat on the sofa while Cove sat down on the other end, tapping his fingers against his knees. Your cheeks warmed a little at that. Being close to him never failed to feel exciting. You'd seen Cove nearly every day for the past 5 years, but seeing him in a jacket was still somewhat unusual. In Southern California, he could get away with that. It was simply difference between his normal style, yet you couldn't help noticing the way he looked right now. It looked great on him. In fact, Cove always looked nice. When Cove cleared his throat, your eyes snapped to his. He had an eyebrow raised and had clearly caught you staring at him.
What?
Is everything okay? Asked Cove. That looks nice on you. Cove immediately blushed at the unexpected compliment. What? Asked Cove. He didn't say anything more than that one word question. You decided to elaborate further. You know, I hardly ever see you wearing a jacket, especially in the summer.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I like wearing as few layers as possible. It's easier that way. I'd rather be cold than extra hot. It's kind of a pain to carry extra clothes around. My parents made me bring this jacket, says Cove. I'm gonna go with the first one. I'm the same way. They're bulky and heavy, and they usually make me feel too warm. Cole smiled lightly at you and nodded. I've noticed, says Cove. You perked up hearing that. He noticed you too. Change the subject. That conversation had run its course. Instead, you asked Cove about what else he would like to do in the park if he had more time here. The two of you ended up chatting about various outdoor activities available: kayaking, rock climbing, hiking, horseback riding, wildlife walks. There were so many things to potentially choose from. You made an agreement that if one of you ever had the chance to come back, you'd bring the other two. That way you could try it all together again. The parents all arrived soon after, each of them climbing into the RV and finding some place to sit down and rest their legs. Elizabeth, having heard the commotion, came out from the room for the first time since arriving and joined you all. You spent the evening chatting and playing a few games, enjoying the last evening of the trip together. Bedtime arrived in the blink of an eye as the group hunkered down for the night. Your mom did finally round to be sure nothing had been left behind. She explained that Cliff was going to start driving early in the morning, like on the first day, but would be letting everyone else in the group sleep. There wouldn't be a need for all of them to get up. Now was the time to check you hadn't left anything outside. You, as well as everyone else, were confident you had it all packed up inside the RV, which meant it was time to get some rest before the journey home tomorrow. Your moms and Elizabeth said goodnight, heading to the back room while you climbed up to the loft. Cove and his family got situated below in the previously set arrangement. You tried to get comfortable as a million thoughts were running through your mind. It was hard to believe that the trip was practically over, and before you knew it, you'd be back in your own home bed at home. I'm gonna go with the first one. You enjoyed this mini adventure. It was short, that was for sure, but you got to see and do much during your time here. All in all, it was a nice break away from home. Minutes tucked away by silently, it didn't take long for the soft snores of Cliff and Kara to drift up to you. They were asleep now. You wondered if Cove was still awake and decided to poke your head out from the loft to find out. You blinked through the dark. Looking down the hall, you noticed Cove laying on his back, his eyes staring straight up at the ceiling. His seafoam hair was spread out on his sleeping bag. He must have felt you watching him, because suddenly his eyes looked on yours. It was difficult to see much in the dim light, but you could make out the crooked smile on his face well enough. You waved at him. Cove waved back, still smiling at you, though through the dim light. You then gestured for him to come over. Cove looked unsure about it, but you were happy to see him slowly start to sit up anyway. His sleeping bag rustled as he moved through. He tried to go slow and froze up like a deer in headlights. Every time he made a sound, watching his parents for any sign of movement. Eventually, he managed to maneuver around his sleeping bag, around his sleeping dad, and made it to the ladder. standing on the bottom rung where he looked up at you and whispered. "What?" asked Cove. You invited him up to the loft. "Do you want me to come up? Do you want to come up?" I asked. His eyes widened, just so you could tell, because he had come to where you were. Cove glanced behind him quickly at his sleeping parents before turning back to you. "Okay," says Cove. You broke out into a grin and crouched back as far as you could, making space for Cove to crawl in. He was very tall, so it wasn't a great fit for him, but he managed to squeeze himself in. Even if you weren't exactly tall, the loft was still a tight squeeze with the two of you in there together. You laid down next to each other on your sides, face to face. He got under the blanket a bit. One of his arms wrestled his head for comfort. The other had nowhere to go and was rested alongside his chest on the floor of the loft. Cove spoke to you softly. Man, just looking at this, I would want to stick my hand right through his hair, comb his hair back, because he looks so handsome. "So what am I doing here?" asked Cove. "You could sleep here instead of the floor." Cove raised an eyebrow, not having expected you to bring that up now. "I'm not sure about this," says Cove. Cove swallowed loudly, and you noticed he wouldn't look you in the eyes anymore. You felt comfortable being so close to him. It seemed natural to have him near you, and being close like this only made it better. You thought back on the trip and the little moments you'd gotten to spend together with Cove. It felt like this trip was definitely had brought you together even more, and not just physically in the same space. You nudged closer to him. You itched towards Cove slowly, your legs pressing together in that very limited space. Cove's face flushed dark enough to notice, even in the almost pitch black RV cabin. The hand resting in front of him tightened, falling into a fist. You okay? I asked.
Yeah.
I'm fine. I mean, I'm not dying or anything. Cole's eyebrows bent up nervously, but his smile widened. He followed your lead and curled up himself deeper into the loft and closer to you. He looked away as he did it. There was almost no space left between he and you. Cole's breath tickled the side of your face. For a moment you stayed together like that. Neither of you spoke a word. Then your eyes locked again. Cove seemed almost taken aback by the situation, as though it hadn't completely hit him what it was going to feel like to do this until just now. He opened his mouth to say something, but shut it tight before anything came out. Yeah, I'm gonna go with the last one. You lean in to kiss him. I know I'd want to. You moved in even closer, eyes half closed as lips inched towards his so slowly. Cole froze immediately. You could feel his body trembling against you as you neared. You grew close enough to be one motion away from placing your lips together. Then, all at once, he bolted upright, completely forgetting the restrictions of the location and smacking his head against the roof of the RV with a loud crack, making you gasp aloud. Ow, says Cove. Cove, are you okay? I asked. Cove didn't answer. He fell back into the loft floor and flustered pile. He pressed one hand against his head and the other over his face as he groaned in pain. Damn. Water. The sound of movements in the RV below started, and when you looked over the side, you noticed Cliff had summarily shot up and was looking around wildly.
What's wrong?
Wake up, people, something happened, says Cole's dad. Cliff reached over to where Kyra was on the couch, and she whined as he shook her out of the sleep deep enough to not be interrupted by the chaos. What's going on? Asked Kyra. And then the lights came on, and you scrabbled under the blanket to avoid being seen, but it was too late.
What?
Cove, where are you? Asked Kyra. Chippy, are you? Oh. It only took a second for Kara to figure out where her son had gone, and soon heard Cliff's chuckle as he too realized. You were warned there wasn't much room up there, bud, says Cove's dad. Cove groaned terribly again. But this time it was out of humiliation. He moved the hand from his sore scalp to also cover his shame, rather than face his parents.
Hey!
What's with all the noise out here? Asked Elizabeth. To your horror, the door at the back of the RV opened, and Elizabeth, as well as your moms, peeked their heads out into the hall. Is everything okay? Asked Mom.
Sorry.
Yes, nothing. Sorry for waking you up, says Cove. Cove curled into himself, completely humiliated, as he apologized a couple more times. Not loud enough for anyone other than you to hear, though. We tried to check on you. Hey, how's your head? I asked. With another whimper, Cove pushed himself up onto his side. I should probably get Mom to look at it, says Cove. Kara casually came on over to the edge of the loft. She patted her son on the back. Come to Mama, baby. You can't stay there, says Kara. There was no putting it off. Cove climbed down the ladder, his face still red as a tomato when he reached the bottom. His dad gave him a nudge on the shoulder as he passed, trying to hold back renewed laughter, and his mom pulled him over to give his head a quick look over. After announcing it wasn't anything more serious than about, Cove shuffled over to his sleeping bag on the ground. He collapsed into it, not caring if he should be more cautious with his head right now.
Sure.
Alright, show's over. Let's all get some sleep, says Cove's dad. You could hear the snickers from the back of the RV from your moms and Elizabeth. They really had been watching this unfold like it was a piece of entertainment. But at that, they quickly said goodnight and headed to bed. With nothing more you could do, you lay back down as the lights went off again. You stayed there completely still until sleep finally overtook you. Then you woke up the next morning. It was to the rumble of the RV as it traveled the long journey home. Blinking the sleep from your eyes, you peeked over the edge of the loft, slowly trying not to be seen. Cove was sitting on the couch with his mom, the two of them talking quietly together. His head was hung low. you blushed when he remembered what it was like last night. Just the two of you up in the loft together, and the way you almost kissed. Kara suddenly looked up and caught your eye, and your face grew even hotter, though she simply smiled at you. You knew it was going to be a long, long time before either of you lived this down, if you ever did. Soon your moms and Elizabeth emerged from their room, dressed and ready for the day of travel. You spent most of the day hanging out together in the RV, savoring the last hours of vacation. Kara suggested a few different travel games she used to play with Cove when she was younger. When he was younger, okay. And you all had a great time competing against each other. A little later in the day, you tried to talk to Cove about what happened in the loft, but he simply apologized and changed the subject. It was a bit too much for him to try speaking on, especially right now. You understood. Then RV pulled into your street. It was well into the night, and you were looking forward to crawling into your own bed after the last few days anyway. Everyone else must have been feeling the same, because it was mutually agreed that unpacking and cleaning the RV would wait until morning. Once home again, you went straight up to your room and dropped onto your bed, shoes and all. I'm gonna go with the last one. You miss being near Cove, because we're already getting strong feelings towards him. The two of you had basically been living together for 3 days. It was nice, but you knew that it wouldn't be the last time the two of you would spend time together, and that thought comforted you. With those last few thoughts drifting through your mind, it wasn't long before you dozed off to sleep. Tomorrow life would go on like normal. And that's it. I'm gonna save it right there. And thanks again for watching my YouTube channel. Next time we will start on the DLCs. We'll go to the mall and then go from there to all the rest of these moments here. Yeah, thanks for watching my YouTube channel, and don't forget to click the like button and hit that subscribe button if you haven't done so already. And I would also like to encourage you to go to my Patreon if you can, and become a Patreon contributor to my Patreon. I'm doing this to raise money for charity. I don't see any of the money. It's going to go directly to charity. I'm also running a special for a limited time. I think I'm going to end it toward sometime in April. I think I had it going that way. Anyway, the special is if you become a VIP contributor, $25 VIP contributor, then I will be giving you a sticker or a button pin with a picture of me in my fursuit and words on it saying thank you very much for becoming a VIP contributor, basically. It's just my way of kind of thanking you all for being a contributor on the VIP special. I guess that was it. Yeah, go to my Patreon if you can, and become a contributor. I don't have anything made yet for the special, but I am working on it. Like I said, it'll either be like a sticker or a button, pin, something like that. But anyway, thanks again, and I will see you guys later.